Well, I'm going to make some policy observations. First of all currently profitable low-carbon options involve using energy twice, recycling. This is the silver bullet. It just hits you in the head. However, numerous policies induce or mandate high-cost low-carbon power generation, almost all of them responding to the vested interests that have built up over 100 years. They want to keep it that way. There are possible unintended consequences, I think I should say probable, because the data all goes this way. We're going to increase global CO2 emissions by these policies. We push power prices higher in the United States by betting on the three-legged horse that can't run, and that simply drives the production of goods and services offshore to places that have high carbon things. So we get higher carbon and we get lower economy because we've done it. We could flip that around, and what has always been the American way is we encourage innovation, and we show there's a cheaper way to do this and save carbon, and now the guys offshore have to follow the same thing because otherwise they can't make their products. IDA's mission: push for policies that induce markets to deploy profitable, clean generation options, profitable to society. You may not think that's what you're doing, but that's what you're doing. Every time you're moving waste heat, it's a profitable solution. We've proven this thesis. 200 projects, about $2 billion, double conventional efficiency. Primary energy, 14 projects. I didn't even know how to count the efficiency there, because when you start with something they're throwing away, you start with 0 and you divide by something. I don't know how you count it. But I will tell you that one project that I showed you saves about 700,000 tons of carbon a year and sells power for $20. Turbo Steam, done lots and lots of projects. Trigen, lots of projects. Now, look at what we got here. These projects, the worst of them, is double the efficiency of the U.S. grid. The worst. Now, I've never been able to run a big company like Olivier. As you can see from my resume, I can't hold a job. The most employees I ever had was 1,000. We got about 45 right now, and yet the projects that those people have done, following the simple rule of using energy twice, save about 5 million tons of carbon a year, and they all still operate. And they all save money for their clients. This is not rocket science. It's doable. So let's look at the rules. Federal tax credits for clean energy. There's some really good news here. As late as 2007, CHP recycled energy, no tax credit whatsoever, hadn't been any since 1986. By contrast, biomass, $20 a megawatt hour, wind, 20, solar, a 30% tax credit, geothermal, et cetera. Now let's move forward to 2009. We now have a 10% tax credit on the first 15 megawatts. If you build a big plant, we don't want to encourage, that would be putting your money on a four-legged horse. Let's stay with the three-legged horses. The other things all ended up with a 30% tax credit and refundable. The numbers don't quite show, because 10% of a plant that costs $2,000 a kilowatt to build is $200 a tax credit. 30% of a plant that costs $9,000 to build is $2,700. And this plant is going to run about 20% of the time. This plant's going to run 90% of the time. So there's quite a distortion, but at least we're moving in the right direction. The Energy Improvement Extension Act gave us the 10% tax credit. It's applicable to projects up to 50 megawatts, only on the first 15 megawatts of the project, however. And as I said, it's worth about $1.35 a megawatt hour over the life of the project. 5-year accelerated depreciation is making a difference, and what has happened is that we've now got refundability of that tax credit, which helps. You don't have to have taxable income to use it. And the depreciation has just gotten unbelievable. We can take 50% of a CHP project in the first year and write it off, and the rest of it in the next 4 years. All of this, Rob and our people have worked very closely together on, and I appreciate all that help. Some other things there's some government-backed loans of $100 billion. Pleased to say we've been selected for the next step on one of those loans on another project, and there's some cost-sharing grants going on. The Waxman-Markey bill, Let me not go into this. Bill talked about it, but it mandates efficiency reductions over time. You know, it's got a lot of controversy, but if something does come out of that, it's going to get things started out in a good way. It allows CHP to qualify. Isn't that amazing? We now allow combined heat and power to stand equal to a better motor. Whew, progress. Tax provisions proposed for 2009. They're talking about increasing the tax credit on CHP to 30%, and they're also talking about increasing it from 15 to 25 megawatts. And then, as mentioned earlier, the co-firing of biomass, that's a whole long story, but if that's removed, you can't put biomass and anything else in the same boiler and get credit. You have to have separate boilers, and that really hurts us in some industrial areas. There's a whole spate of state actions that have occurred that are making the climate better. I won't go into them, but you can now get locational credits for putting CHP in certain places. You're actually starting to be paid for the fact that you're avoiding transmission lines. People ask me, Tom, if this is such a great thing, why isn't it done? And their answer is, there's something wrong with his logic. I know why it's not done. There's nothing wrong with my logic. It is that we have not been able to capture more than 55 to 60% of the value we create, and the rest gets thrown away or given to the utility. These rule changes are starting to allow these things to capture 65 to 70% of the value, and the good news is at that level they start to work. You're going to see an enormous boom in CHP. You'll see a lot of it done wrong, where they're going to make as much electricity as they can, but where your role is to get the pipes built and get it delivered. So that brings me to the conclusions. IDA has encouraged using energy twice for 100 years. The progress has been inverse to the fossil fuel subsidies, which are ubiquitous all over the world, and to utility protection, which is ubiquitous all over the world. Those two things have countered logic for 100 years. They still counter logic, but we got this big problem coming that we might have to actually be logical in the way we make power. It's a possibility. I would submit to you that life as we know it depends on increasing generation efficiency. It is maybe not a silver bullet, but if you don't deal with this, the rest is a waste of time. You can't solve what we've got without dealing with generation efficiency. And you don't deal with 69% of the CO2, what are you going to do with the rest? The modest recent incentives are now law. They favor efficiency. They're flawed in the fact that they still ignore thermal energy, and you get all these benefits and it's like thermal energy didn't exist, ought to be woven into all of it. However, the pending legislation is really game-changing. One of the things that's most interesting in the Waxman-Markey bill is it says there'll be a new market for power, that you got to get to 20% of the power coming from renewable and efficiency, and that opens up a separate market for it, and we're seeing the effect of that already. As a result of that, after only 100 years, IDA's time has come. Thank you.